The hospital gown clung to Samantha's sweaty skin as another wave of pain crashed over her body like a freight train. She gripped the metal bed rail so hard her knuckles turned white, her breathing coming in short, desperate gasps. The sterile smell of disinfectant mixed with her own fear as she stared at the clock on the wall. 2:47 a.m. She had been calling Ryan for the past 6 hours, leaving message after message, but her phone remained silent on the bedside table. "Where is he?" she whispered through gritted teeth, tears streaming down her face. The nurse, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, adjusted the drip and gave her a sympathetic look. "Honey, we need to focus on you and the baby right now," the nurse said softly, but Samantha could hear the judgment in her voice. Another woman abandoned by a man who couldn't handle responsibility. The contractions were getting stronger and closer together. Samantha had imagined this moment so many times, Ryan holding her hand, whispering encouraging words, sharing the miracle of their child's birth. Instead, she was completely alone in a room full of strangers, facing the most important moment of her life without the man who had promised to love her forever. Her phone buzzed once. Hope flared in her chest as she grabbed it with shaking hands, but it was just a text from her landlord asking about next month's rent. The disappointment hit her harder than the physical pain. Ryan wasn't coming. After 3 years together, after all his promises about being ready for fatherhood, after moving in together and planning their future, he had vanished when she needed him most. The doctor entered the room, snapping on latex gloves. "How are we doing, Samantha? It looks like your baby is ready to meet the world." "Please," she begged, looking at her phone one more time. "Can we wait just a little longer? He might still come." The doctor's expression was gentle but firm. "Nature doesn't wait for anyone, sweetheart. Your baby is coming whether Dad is here or not." As the next contraction hit, stronger than all the others, Samantha realized she was truly on her own. The man who had held her close just weeks ago, promising they would face everything together, had disappeared when their relationship became real. When it required sacrifice and commitment instead of just fun and games. She closed her eyes and made a silent promise to herself and to the child fighting to enter the world. She would be enough. She would be everything her baby needed, even if she had to do it alone. The betrayal cut deep, but her love for this unborn child cut deeper. Ryan had made his choice by not showing up. Now she would make hers. The pain was overwhelming, but somewhere in the middle of it, Samantha found a strength she didn't know she possessed. She was about to become a mother, and that meant everything had changed. She couldn't afford to be the broken-hearted girl waiting for a man who clearly didn't deserve her love. She had to become someone stronger, someone worthy of the tiny life depending on her. Hours later, as she held her daughter for the first time, Samantha felt a mix of pure joy and devastating loneliness. The baby was perfect, 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, and the most beautiful face she had ever seen. She had Ryan's dark hair but Samantha's brown eyes, and when she looked up at her mother for the first time, Samantha felt her heart break and heal simultaneously. "Hello, beautiful," she whispered, tears falling onto the soft blanket. "I'm your mama, and I promise you'll never feel alone the way I do right now." She named her daughter Hope, because even in her darkest moment, that's what this child represented. A chance to build something better, something real, something that couldn't be abandoned when times got tough. The nurse helped her with the first feeding, showing her how to hold the baby properly. "You're a natural," she said with genuine warmth. "This little one is lucky to have you." Samantha wanted to believe that, but as she looked around the empty room, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had failed somehow. Failed to choose a better man, failed to see the signs that Ryan wasn't ready for this responsibility, failed to protect her daughter from starting life in a broken home. Her phone remained silent throughout the night. No calls, no texts, no explanations. Ryan had simply erased himself from their lives as if 3 years together meant nothing. As if the child they had created together was someone else's problem. When morning came, Samantha made the hardest phone call of her life to her mother, explaining that she was a grandmother now but that Ryan wasn't in the picture. The disappointment in her mother's voice was almost worse than Ryan's absence. Another generation of women in their family raising children alone, struggling to make ends meet, wondering where they went wrong in choosing their partners. But as she looked down at Hope sleeping peacefully in her arms, Samantha felt something shift inside her. The hurt was still there, the betrayal still burned, but underneath it all was a fierce determination she had never experienced before. She would not let her daughter grow up feeling unwanted or unloved. She would not let Ryan's abandonment define their story. She had no idea how she would manage financially or emotionally or practically. She had no idea how she would explain to Hope someday why her father wasn't there for her birth. But she knew with absolute certainty that she would figure it out because she had to. Because this tiny person deserved a mother who fought for her, who never gave up, who turned abandonment into strength. The social worker came by later that morning to help with the birth certificate paperwork. When she asked about the father's information, Samantha stared at the blank line for a long moment. "He's not involved," she said finally, her voice steady despite the pain. "It's just me and her now." 6 months later, Samantha pushed her cleaning cart down the empty hallway of the Sterling Financial Building, her footsteps echoing in the silence. It was 11 p.m., and the corporate world had long since gone home to their families and comfortable lives. The baby monitor clipped to her belt crackled softly. Hope was sleeping peacefully in the daycare center's overnight program, one of the few places that offered care for children of night shift workers. Every muscle in Samantha's body ached from the double shift she had just finished. Days were spent at a diner serving coffee and pancakes to customers who barely looked at her, and nights were spent here, cleaning up after people who made more in a month than she made in a year. But she couldn't complain. These 2 jobs barely covered rent, formula, diapers and childcare, but they kept her and Hope afloat. She sprayed the glass conference table and wiped it clean, her reflection staring back at her from the polished surface. Dark circles under her eyes told the story of sleepless nights, not just from Hope's feeding schedule, but from the constant worry about money, about the future, about whether she was doing right by her daughter. The elevator dinged at the end of the hall, and Samantha's heart skipped. Usually the building was completely empty during her shift. She grabbed her cart and tried to look busy, hoping whoever it was would just pass by without noticing her. She had learned to make herself invisible in this job. The less attention she drew, the better. Footsteps approached, and she glanced up to see a man in an expensive suit walking toward the corner office. He was tall, with kind eyes and graying temples that suggested he was in his early 40s. What struck her most was that he nodded politely when he saw her, actually acknowledging her presence instead of looking through her like most people did. "Working late tonight?" he said with a gentle smile. "Yes, sir," Samantha replied, keeping her voice professional. "Sorry if I'm in your way. I can come back to this floor later." "Not at all. I'm the one interrupting your work." He paused at his office door, then turned back. "I'm Jonathan, by the way. I don't think we've met." "Samantha," she said, surprised by his friendliness. Most executives didn't bother learning the cleaning staff's names. "Well, Samantha, I'll probably be here for a few hours. Please don't feel like you need to work around me. I know you have a schedule to keep." He disappeared into his office, and Samantha continued her work, puzzled by the interaction. In 6 months of working here, no one had ever bothered to introduce themselves or show any consideration for her schedule. She had become used to being treated like part of the furniture. An hour later, she was emptying trash cans when she heard voices from Jonathan's office. He was on a conference call with what sounded like clients in different time zones. She tried to work quietly, but couldn't help overhearing snippets of conversation about investment strategies and market analysis. It was a world so far removed from her own that it might as well have been a foreign language. As she moved to the break room, her phone buzzed with a text from the daycare. Hope had woken up and was fussy, probably hungry. Samantha's heart clenched. She hated being away from her daughter, especially when Hope needed her. But she couldn't afford to leave work early. Every hour counted toward keeping their tiny apartment and putting food on the table. She texted back asking them to try giving Hope the bottle she had prepared earlier, then returned to her cleaning with renewed urgency. The faster she finished this floor, the sooner she could move on to the next one and eventually get back to her baby. "Excuse me, Samantha?" She turned to find Jonathan standing in the break room doorway, looking concerned. "I couldn't help but notice you seem worried about something. Is everything okay?" Samantha was taken aback by his genuine concern. "Oh, it's nothing, sir. Just, my daughter is at daycare and she's having a difficult night." "You have a daughter? How old?" 6 months, Samantha said, then immediately wondered if she had shared too much. Some employers didn't like knowing their workers had personal obligations that might interfere with the job. But Jonathan's expression softened. "That must be incredibly difficult, working nights with such a young baby. I can't imagine how exhausting that is." "We manage," Samantha said quietly, not wanting to seem like she was complaining or asking for special treatment. "I'm sure you do more than just manage. Single parenting is one of the hardest jobs in the world." He paused. "Listen, I don't want to overstep, but I noticed there's a small office on this floor that's not being used. It has a comfortable couch. If you ever need to bring your daughter with you in an emergency, I wouldn't see anything wrong with that." Samantha stared at him in shock. In her experience, employers were looking for reasons to fire single mothers, not offering them solutions. "That's very kind of you, sir, but I couldn't." "Think about it," he said gently. "The offer stands whenever you need it." He started to walk away, then turned back. "And Samantha? You don't have to call me sir. Jonathan is fine." After he left, Samantha stood alone in the break room, processing what had just happened. Kindness from strangers was so rare in her life that she almost didn't know how to handle it. Part of her wondered what Jonathan wanted in return. In her experience, men didn't offer help without expecting something back. But something in his manner seemed genuinely caring, without any hidden agenda. Her phone buzzed again, another text from daycare. They had managed to get Hope settled, but she was still restless. Samantha's maternal instincts were screaming at her to abandon her cart and run to her daughter, but she forced herself to stay focused. This job was their lifeline, and she couldn't afford to jeopardize it, no matter how much her heart was breaking. She finished the remaining floors in record time, her mind racing between worry for Hope and confusion about Jonathan's unexpected kindness. When she finally collected her daughter from daycare at 6 a.m., Hope's tear-stained face nearly broke her heart. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered, holding Hope close as they walked to their car, a 15-year-old sedan that she prayed would keep running for at least another year. "Mama has to work so we can have a home and food, but I hate being away from you." Hope settled against her chest, finally calm now that she was back in her mother's arms. As Samantha drove home through the early morning traffic, she thought about Jonathan's offer. She had never brought Hope to work. It seemed unprofessional and risky. But knowing that someone understood her situation, that there was a backup plan if she ever truly needed it, felt like a small miracle. Maybe, just maybe, there were still good people in the world who helped without expecting anything in return. After Ryan's betrayal, Samantha had built walls around her heart, convinced that everyone would eventually let her down. But Jonathan's simple act of kindness had created a tiny crack in those walls, letting in just a sliver of hope that not all men were selfish and unreliable. She pulled into the parking lot of their apartment complex, a rundown building in a neighborhood she wouldn't have chosen if she'd had any other options. But it was home, and it was theirs, and that was enough for now. As she carried Hope upstairs, she made a mental note to thank Jonathan the next time she saw him. His kindness had been exactly what she needed on one of her hardest nights. 2 weeks later, Samantha was facing her worst nightmare at work. The elevator was stuck between the 15th and 16th floors with her inside, along with her heavy cleaning cart and all the supplies she needed to finish the upper floors. She had pressed the emergency button 3 times, but the security guard who was supposed to respond was nowhere to be found. Panic was setting in. Not because she was afraid of small spaces, but because she was on a strict schedule. If she didn't finish her work by 6 a.m., she would be late picking up Hope from daycare, which meant extra fees she couldn't afford. Worse, being late might be seen as unreliable by her supervisors, and she couldn't risk losing this job. She pressed the button again, holding it down longer this time. The elevator had been making strange noises all week, but no one seemed to care about maintaining equipment that only the cleaning staff used regularly. She tried calling the front desk from her cell phone, but there was no signal inside the metal box. Just as she was considering whether she could somehow climb out through the ceiling panels, she heard voices above her. Someone was talking to building maintenance about the elevator problem. "Hello," she called out, her voice echoing in the shaft. "I'm stuck in here." "We know," came a familiar voice. "We're working on getting you out. Are you okay in there?" It was Jonathan. Relief flooded through her. At least someone was aware of her situation and trying to help. "I'm fine," she called back, though her voice shook slightly. "I just need to get out soon. I have a schedule to keep." "Don't worry about the schedule tonight. Getting you out safely is the only priority." 20 minutes later, the elevator lurched back to life and slowly made its way to the 16th floor. When the doors opened, Jonathan was standing there with 2 maintenance workers and a security guard who looked embarrassed about his delayed response. "Are you hurt?" Jonathan asked immediately, scanning her for any signs of injury. "No, I'm okay," Samantha said, stepping out on shaky legs. "Thank you for getting help." "The security guard should have responded immediately," Jonathan said, his tone stern as he looked at the uniformed man. "This is unacceptable. What if there had been a medical emergency?" "Sorry, sir," the guard mumbled. "I was doing rounds in the parking garage and didn't hear the alarm at first." "Make sure it doesn't happen again," Jonathan said firmly, then turned back to Samantha. "Let me help you with your cart." "You don't need to do that," Samantha protested as he began pushing the heavy cart down the hallway. "I can manage." "I'm sure you can, but you've had a stressful experience. The least I can do is help you get back on track." He paused outside his office. Would you like some water or coffee? You look a little pale. Samantha realized she was still shaking from the adrenaline and fear. Water would be nice, thank you. Jonathan disappeared into his office and returned with a bottle of water and a comfortable chair. Sit for a minute. The cleaning can wait. I really can't, Samantha said, though she accepted the water gratefully. I have to finish the upper floors and I'm already behind schedule. If I'm late. You won't be fired for being stuck in a broken elevator, Jonathan said gently. And if anyone has a problem with you finishing late tonight, they can talk to me. Something in his tone made Samantha look at him more carefully. What do you do here exactly? Jonathan hesitated for a moment. I work in management. Don't worry about the schedule tonight, okay? Focus on doing your job safely. As Samantha worked her way through the remaining floors, she kept thinking about Jonathan's intervention. He had taken charge of the situation with an authority that suggested he was more than just another middle manager. And the way the security guard had immediately apologized and promised to do better indicated that Jonathan carried significant weight in the building. When she reached his floor again, his office light was still on. She knocked softly on the doorframe. Come in, he called, looking up from a stack of documents. How are you feeling? Much better, thank you. I wanted to return your chair and say thanks again for helping me tonight. Keep the chair for now. Sometimes you need to sit for a moment during your shift. He gestured to the couch in his office. Actually, I've been thinking about our conversation a couple weeks ago. About your daughter. Samantha tensed slightly. Is there a problem? Not at all. I was wondering, how do you manage your schedule when she's sick? It must be incredibly difficult to find childcare for night shifts, especially when she needs extra attention. The question hit close to home. Just last week, Hope had run a fever, and Samantha had been forced to call in sick, losing a full day's pay from both jobs. The daycare wouldn't accept sick children, and she had no family nearby to help. It's challenging, she admitted, but we figure it out. The offer I made before still stands, Jonathan said quietly. If you ever need to bring her with you in an emergency, there's space here. I work late most nights anyway, so you wouldn't be alone in the building. Why are you being so kind to me? Samantha asked suddenly, the question slipping out before she could stop herself. Jonathan was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. Because everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Because being a single parent is hard enough without having to worry about losing your job every time life gets complicated. And because... He paused. Because I think you're doing an incredible job under very difficult circumstances, and that should be acknowledged, not ignored. Tears pricked at Samantha's eyes. She had become so used to being invisible, to fighting every battle alone, that simple human kindness felt overwhelming. Thank you, she whispered. That means more than you know. You don't have to thank me for treating you like a human being, Jonathan said softly. That should be the minimum standard, not something special. As Samantha finished her shift that night, she found herself thinking about Jonathan's words. For 6 months she had felt like she was drowning, barely keeping her head above water as she juggled work, motherhood, and the constant stress of financial pressure. But tonight, for the first time since Hope was born, someone had seen her struggle and offered help without judgment or expectation. Maybe she wasn't as alone as she thought. Maybe there were still people in the world who understood that everyone was fighting battles others couldn't see, and that sometimes a little kindness could make all the difference between surviving and thriving. She still didn't fully understand why Jonathan was being so generous with his time and concern, but she was beginning to believe that his intentions were genuine. In a world that had shown her mostly indifference and betrayal, that tiny seed of trust felt like the beginning of something she hadn't dared hope for, the possibility that not everyone would let her down. Over the next month, Samantha began to look forward to her encounters with Jonathan during her night shifts. What had started as polite exchanges had evolved into genuine conversations that made the long, lonely hours at work feel less isolating. He always seemed to be working late, and their paths crossed naturally as she cleaned the executive floors. Tonight was different though. Samantha had arrived at work with puffy eyes and a heavy heart. Hope had been fussy all day, barely eating, and the pediatrician visit had cost money she didn't have. The doctor said it was just a minor cold, but seeing her baby struggle to breathe through a stuffy nose had left Samantha feeling helpless and exhausted. She was emptying the trash in the break room when she noticed a small wrapped package on the counter with her name on it. Inside was a box of premium tea, chamomile and honey, with a note written in neat handwriting. For those nights when coffee isn't enough and sleep seems impossible. Everyone needs a moment of peace. Samantha stared at the note, her throat tightening with emotion. How had he known she was struggling? She had tried so hard to maintain her professional composure, to never let her personal problems show at work. "I hope you don't mind," came Jonathan's voice from behind her. "I noticed you always drink coffee, but you look like you might need something more soothing tonight." She turned to face him, clutching the tea box. "How did you know I was having a difficult day?" "Lucky guess," he said gently. "Plus, you have that look that every parent gets when their child isn't feeling well. Is Hope okay?" The fact that he remembered her daughter's name, that he cared enough to ask, nearly undid her completely. "She has a cold. Nothing serious, but she's miserable, and I hate leaving her when she's not feeling well. Have you considered the emergency arrangement we discussed? If she's more comfortable here with you than at daycare when she's sick." Samantha shook her head quickly. "I couldn't impose like that. It wouldn't be professional." "Sometimes being human is more important than being professional," Jonathan said quietly. "But I understand your hesitation. The offer remains open whenever you're ready." He started to leave, then paused. "Samantha? You're doing an amazing job. I know it doesn't feel like it some days, but you are. Hope is lucky to have you as her mother." After he left, Samantha sat in the break room for a few minutes, sipping the chamomile tea and trying to process the kindness she was experiencing. The tea was perfect, soothing and warm, exactly what she needed after such a stressful day. But more than that, it was the thoughtfulness behind the gesture that touched her so deeply. The next week, she found another small surprise, a gift card to the grocery store tucked into her time card envelope, along with another note. "I know you didn't ask for help, and I hope this doesn't offend you. I just remember what it was like to stretch every dollar, and I thought this might make one week a little easier. You can pay it forward someday when you're in a position to help someone else." This time, Samantha sought him out immediately. She found Jonathan in his office, working on what looked like financial reports. "I can't accept this," she said, holding out the gift card. He looked up, his expression patient but firm. "Why not?" "Because I don't take charity. I work for what I earn." "This isn't charity," Jonathan said calmly. "This is one human being helping another during a difficult time. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Charity implies that you're helpless and need to be rescued. Help implies that you're strong and capable, but everyone needs support sometimes." He leaned back in his chair. "You work 2 jobs, you're raising a child alone, you've never missed a shift or complained about the workload. You're not helpless, Samantha. You're remarkable. But even remarkable people need help sometimes." "I don't understand why you're doing this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jonathan was quiet for a long moment, then gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Would you sit? I'd like to tell you something." Reluctantly, Samantha sat down, still clutching the gift card. "I grew up with a single mother," Jonathan began. "My father left when I was 7 and my mother worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat. I watched her struggle every day, watched her choose between paying the electric bill and buying groceries, watched her cry quietly in the kitchen when she thought I was asleep." Samantha's breath caught. She knew that feeling, that impossible choice between basic necessities. "I was too young to help her then," Jonathan continued. "But I swore that if I ever had the means to make someone's life a little easier, I would do it. Not because they were weak or needed rescuing, but because everyone deserves to have someone in their corner." "What happened to your mother?" "She remarried when I was in college, a good man who appreciated everything she had sacrificed for her son. She's happy now, but those early years were brutal." He smiled sadly. "When I see you juggling everything you're juggling, I see her. And I see an opportunity to be the person I wished had appeared in our lives back then." Samantha felt tears threatening again. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just accept that sometimes good things happen to good people, and you deserve good things." Over the following weeks, their conversations became the highlight of Samantha's workdays. Jonathan would emerge from his office when she was cleaning nearby, and they would talk about everything from Hope's latest milestones to books they had read to their dreams for the future. She learned that he was divorced, that he had no children of his own, and that he had built his career from nothing through hard work and determination. He learned about her plans to eventually go back to school, her dreams of giving Hope a better life, and her fears about whether she was strong enough to handle everything alone. "You're already handling it," he told her one night as she cleaned the conference room where he was working late. "Every day that you get up and show up and take care of Hope and work these demanding jobs, you're handling it. The question isn't whether you're strong enough. The question is whether you're willing to let people help you when you need it." "I've never been good at accepting help," Samantha admitted. "That's because you've probably never had help offered without strings attached," Jonathan said perceptively. "But not everyone has an agenda. Some people just want to make the world a little kinder. One evening, Samantha's worst fears came true. The daycare called at 1 a.m. Hope had a fever and was inconsolable. They couldn't keep her overnight in her condition, and Samantha had to choose between her job and her child. There was no choice really. She grabbed her keys and was heading for the elevator when she ran into Jonathan coming out of his office. "Emergency?" he asked, taking in her panicked expression. "Hope is sick. I have to go get her, but I haven't finished." "Go," he said immediately. "I'll handle everything here." "You can't clean the building," Samantha protested. "I can make sure your job is secure until you get back. Family comes first, always." As she drove through the empty streets to the daycare, Samantha realized that something fundamental had shifted in her relationship with Jonathan. He wasn't just being kind anymore, he was actively protecting her ability to be the mother she needed to be. And for the first time since Hope was born, she didn't feel like she was facing the crisis completely alone. Maybe, just maybe, she was ready to let someone help her carry the load. Samantha was feeding Hope breakfast when the knock came at her apartment door. It was Saturday morning, her only day off from both jobs, and she had been looking forward to spending uninterrupted time with her daughter. Hope was finally over her cold and had slept through the night for the first time in a week. She wasn't expecting anyone. Her mother lived 3 states away, she had no close friends in the city, and her landlord usually called before showing up. Through the peephole, she saw a man with his back turned, wearing a familiar leather jacket she recognized even after all these months. Her blood turned to ice. "Ryan." Hope gurgled happily in her high chair, oblivious to the tension that had just filled the room. Samantha's hands shook as she unlocked the door, her mind racing with questions and her heart pounding with a mixture of anger and old hurt. He turned when he heard the door open, and she was struck by how different he looked. Thinner, older somehow, with dark circles under his eyes that matched her own. His usually confident demeanor seemed subdued, almost nervous. "Hi, Sam," he said quietly. "Don't call me that," she replied, her voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. "What do you want, Ryan?" "I want to meet my daughter." The words hit her like a physical blow. After 10 months of silence, after abandoning her during labor, after ignoring every attempt she had made to contact him in those first desperate weeks, now he wanted to be a father? "Your daughter?" Samantha's voice rose slightly. "You haven't seen her or helped support her or even acknowledged her existence for 10 months. You don't get to call her your daughter." "I know I messed up," Ryan said, his eyes darting past her to where Hope was sitting. "I know I handled everything wrong. But she's still my blood and I want to make things right." "Make things right?" Samantha stepped outside and pulled the door mostly closed behind her, not wanting Hope to sense the tension. "You left me alone in the hospital. You changed your phone number. You moved out of your apartment without giving me an address. You disappeared completely." "I was scared," Ryan said, running his hands through his hair in a gesture she remembered from their relationship. "I wasn't ready to be a father. I thought maybe if I gave you some space, you'd figure out that you were better off without me. So you decided that for both of us? You decided that your daughter was better off without a father?" "I was wrong," he said, meeting her eyes for the first time. "I've spent the last 10 months thinking about what I threw away. About you, about our baby, about the family we could have been." Samantha felt something crack inside her chest, but she wasn't sure if it was her heart breaking again or her anger finally finding its voice. "Where have you been, Ryan? What changed? Why now?" He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "I've been getting help. Therapy. Working on myself. I know I have a lot to make up for, but I want to try. I want to be the man you deserved, the father she deserves." "She has a name," Samantha said coldly. "Hope. Her name is Hope." "Hope," he repeated softly. "That's beautiful. Did you put my name on the birth certificate?" "No," Samantha said, watching his face fall. "Because you weren't there. Because I had no way to contact you. Because as far as I knew, you never wanted anything to do with us." They stood in uncomfortable silence for a moment, the weight of 10 months of abandonment hanging between them. "Can I see her?" Ryan asked finally. "Just for a few minutes?" Every protective instinct Samantha had screamed no. This man had hurt her more deeply than she thought possible. He had left her when she needed him most, forced her to face single motherhood with no support, no explanation, no closure. But looking at him now, she saw something that might have been genuine remorse. More importantly, she thought about Hope. Someday her daughter would ask about her father, and Samantha wanted to be able to say she had tried to give Hope every chance to know her biological parent, even if that parent had failed them both. "You can see her," she said finally. But I'm not leaving you alone with her, and if she gets upset, you leave immediately. Ryan nodded eagerly. Of course. Whatever you're comfortable with. Samantha led him into the small apartment, acutely aware of how modest it was compared to the places they had visited together when they were dating. The furniture was second-hand, the walls needed paint, and toys were scattered across the living room floor. But it was clean and warm, and it was home. Hope looked up from her high chair when they entered, her big brown eyes curious about the stranger. She had grown so much since birth. She was sitting up confidently now, reaching for everything, and had started making babbling sounds that almost seemed like words. "Oh my God," Ryan breathed, stopping short when he saw her. "She's beautiful." Hope studied him for a moment, then reached out with one chubby hand the way she did with everyone new. Ryan looked at Samantha questioningly. "You can touch her hand," Samantha said reluctantly. "She's friendly with strangers." Ryan approached slowly and let Hope grab his finger. When she smiled at him, that radiant, innocent smile that melted hearts everywhere, his eyes filled with tears. "She looks like you," he said softly. "But she has my hair." "She has your stubborn streak too," Samantha said, surprising herself with the comment. She hadn't meant to make conversation, but seeing him with Hope was stirring up complicated emotions. "I can't believe how much I've missed," Ryan said, his voice thick. Her first smile, her first laugh, learning to sit up. "I threw all of that away." "Yes, you did," Samantha said simply. There was no point in softening the truth. Ryan spent the next hour playing with Hope, who seemed delighted by the attention. He was gentle with her, patient when she fussed, and genuinely engaged in a way that reminded Samantha why she had fallen in love with him in the first place. This was the Ryan she had known before the pregnancy: charming, funny, good with children. But as she watched them together, Samantha felt her confusion growing. Part of her wanted to protect Hope from the man who had abandoned them. But another part of her, the part that had loved him once, wondered if people could really change, if second chances were possible. "I've been thinking," Ryan said as Hope dozed in his arms. "About us. About what we could be as a family." "There is no us," Samantha said quickly. "Whatever this is, it's about you and Hope. You and I are over." "Are we?" Ryan asked, his eyes searching her face. "I know I have a lot to make up for, but what we had was real, Sam. The love we shared, the future we planned, that was real." "What was real was me giving birth alone while you were nowhere to be found," Samantha said, her voice hardening. "What was real was me working 2 jobs to support our daughter while you were off finding yourself, or whatever you call what you've been doing." "I know," Ryan said quietly. "I know I can't undo that. But I can try to make it right from now on. I can be the partner you need, the father she deserves." "Why should I believe you?" Samantha asked. "You made promises before. You said you were ready for this, ready for us. Then you disappeared the moment it got real." "Because I'm different now," Ryan insisted. "I've had time to think, to grow up, to understand what I lost. I'm not the same person who ran away." Hope stirred in his arms, and Ryan looked down at her with such tenderness that Samantha felt her resolve wavering slightly. Maybe he had changed. Maybe he did deserve a chance to be Hope's father. "I'm not asking you to take me back immediately," Ryan continued. "I'm asking for a chance to prove I've changed. To show you that I can be the man you both deserve." "What does that look like?" Samantha asked, hating herself for even considering it. "I want to be involved in Hope's life. I want to help support her financially. I want to." He paused, looking directly at her. "I want to try to earn back your trust and maybe, eventually, your love." Samantha's heart was racing. For 10 months, she had imagined this moment: Ryan coming back, apologizing, wanting to be a family. But now that it was actually happening, she felt more confused than relieved. "I need time to think," she said finally. "Of course," Ryan said, carefully placing Hope back in her high chair. "I don't expect an answer right away. But Sam, I'm not going anywhere this time. I'm going to keep showing up, keep trying, until you believe that I've changed." After he left, Samantha sat on her couch holding Hope, her mind spinning. The apartment felt different somehow, as if Ryan's presence had shifted something fundamental in their carefully constructed life. She thought about Jonathan, about the kindness he had shown her, about the way he had never asked for anything in return. He had been everything Ryan wasn't: reliable, supportive, present. But Ryan was Hope's father, and didn't that count for something? Her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. "Thank you for letting me meet her. She's perfect, just like her mother. I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere this time." Samantha stared at the message for a long time. Part of her wanted to believe him, wanted to give Hope the chance to have her father in her life. But another part of her, the part that had been hurt so deeply by his abandonment, wasn't sure she could ever trust him again. And somewhere in the middle of all that confusion was the growing realization that her feelings for Jonathan were deeper than she had admitted to herself. His steady presence, his genuine care for both her and Hope, his understanding of what it meant to struggle and survive, all of that had begun to heal the broken places in her heart. Now Ryan was back, asking for another chance, and Samantha had no idea how to choose between the man who had given her hope and the man who had helped her find herself again. Hope looked up at her and smiled, completely unaware of the storm of emotions her mother was experiencing. In that moment, Samantha made a promise to herself. Whatever decision she made, it would be based on what was best for Hope, not on her own fear or confusion or lingering feelings. But figuring out what was best for Hope was going to be the hardest choice of her life. Monday night came too quickly. Samantha found herself dreading work for the first time since she had started at Sterling Financial. All weekend, she had been consumed with thoughts of Ryan's return and what it might mean for her and Hope's future. She had barely slept, her mind churning with questions and doubts. The one bright spot in her confusion had been the thought of seeing Jonathan again. Their conversations had become an anchor in her life, a steady source of comfort and understanding. She needed his perspective, his calm wisdom, his reminder that she was stronger than she sometimes felt. But tonight something was different. As she pushed her cart through the familiar hallways, she noticed things she had overlooked before. The way the security guards nodded respectfully when they passed Jonathan's office. The expensive artwork on the walls that she had never really examined. The fact that Jonathan's office was larger than any of the others, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. When she knocked on his door frame at their usual time, he looked up from a stack of documents that appeared to be financial reports with very large numbers on them. "Samantha," he said, his face lighting up with genuine pleasure. "How was your weekend?" "Complicated," she admitted, entering his office. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. What do you do here exactly? I mean, what's your job title?" Jonathan's expression shifted slightly, becoming more cautious. "Why do you ask?" "I've been working here for almost a year and I'm starting to realize I don't actually know what you do. You're always here late, you seem to have a lot of authority, and your office is—" She gestured around the spacious room with its expensive furniture and impressive view. Jonathan was quiet for a long moment, then closed the folder he had been working on. "Sit down, Samantha. There's something I should have told you a long time ago." A cold feeling settled in her stomach. "What kind of something?" "I'm not just a manager here," he said quietly. "I'm the CEO. This is my company." The words hit her like a physical blow. Samantha stared at him, processing what he had just said. CEO. His company. All this time she had been talking to, confiding in, accepting help from the man who ultimately controlled her job, her livelihood, her ability to support Hope. "You're the CEO," she repeated, her voice flat. "Yes." "Sterling Financial is your company." "Yes." Samantha felt sick. "Why didn't you tell me?" "At first I didn't think it mattered. You were just someone I encountered during my late nights at the office. But then we started talking and I realized that if you knew who I was, it would change everything between us." "You're right," Samantha said, standing up abruptly. "It changes everything." "It doesn't have to," Jonathan said quickly. "I'm still the same person you've been talking to all these months. I still care about you and Hope. I still—" "You lied to me," Samantha interrupted, her voice rising. "For months you let me believe you were just another employee. You let me tell you things about my life, my struggles, my fears about losing this job. You had me worried about being professional while you were secretly the person who could fire me on a whim." "I would never fire you," Jonathan said, his voice urgent. "Your job has never been in jeopardy." "That's not the point." Samantha was fighting back tears now. "The point is that you lied to me. You let me think we were equals, that you understood what it was like to struggle, when all along you were the millionaire CEO who could solve my problems with pocket change." "I do understand what it's like to struggle," Jonathan said quietly. "Everything I told you about my childhood, about my mother, that was all true. Yes, I'm wealthy now, but I haven't forgotten where I came from." "But you forgot to mention that detail when you were offering to help me," Samantha said bitterly. "When you were giving me gift cards and tea and making me feel like someone actually cared about me as a person." "I do care about you as a person," Jonathan said, standing up and moving toward her. "That's why I didn't tell you. I knew that if you found out, you'd start seeing me differently. You'd wonder about my motives, question every gesture of kindness." "Well, you were right about that," Samantha said, backing toward the door. "I am questioning everything now. Was any of it real, or was it all just the rich CEO feeling sorry for the poor cleaning lady?" "It was real," Jonathan said firmly. Every conversation, every moment of concern, every gesture of support, it was all real. I care about you, Samantha. More than you know. How much more? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jonathan's eyes met hers and she saw something there that made her breath catch. More than I should. More than is probably appropriate, given our situation. The admission hung between them, heavy with implications. Samantha felt her world tilting again, just when she had started to find her balance. I can't do this, she said, shaking her head. I can't deal with you and Ryan and all of this confusion. I can't figure out what's real and what's not. Ryan. Jonathan's expression changed. Who's Ryan? Hope's father, Samantha said, immediately regretting sharing that information. He came back this weekend. He wants to be involved in our lives again. Something flickered across Jonathan's face: surprise, disappointment, maybe even jealousy. And how do you feel about that? I don't know, Samantha admitted. I don't know how I feel about anything anymore. I thought I was finally getting my life together, finally finding some stability. But now Ryan's back and you're not who I thought you were, and I don't know what to believe. Believe this, Jonathan said, his voice intense. I never meant to deceive you. I never meant to complicate your life. I just wanted to help, and somewhere along the way I started to care about you more than I ever intended. I have to go, Samantha said, reaching for the door handle. I need to think about all of this. Samantha, wait, Jonathan called after her. Can we talk about this? Work through it together? But she was already gone, pushing her cart down the hallway with tears streaming down her face. Everything she had thought she knew about her life had been turned upside down in the space of one weekend. The man she had trusted, the man who had shown her kindness when she needed it most, had been keeping a secret that changed everything. And somewhere in the middle of all that confusion was the growing realization that her feelings for Jonathan were deeper than she had admitted to herself. But how could she trust those feelings when they had been built on a lie? As she finished her shift in mechanical silence, Samantha wondered if she was destined to keep choosing the wrong men, to keep letting herself be hurt by people who couldn't be honest with her. First Ryan, who had abandoned her. Now Jonathan, who had deceived her. Maybe she was better off alone after all. Maybe trusting people was a luxury she couldn't afford when she had hoped to protect. But even as she thought it, she knew it wasn't true. Because despite everything, despite the lies and the confusion and the hurt, she still cared about Jonathan. Still felt drawn to him in ways that scared her. And that, more than anything else, was what made this situation so impossible to navigate. The next 3 weeks were the longest of Samantha's life. She threw herself into work, avoiding Jonathan's office whenever possible and keeping their interactions strictly professional. When their paths crossed, he would try to engage her in conversation, but she would politely deflect and move on. Meanwhile, Ryan had become a constant presence in her life. He showed up every few days with gifts for Hope, toys, clothes, books, and stayed for hours playing with their daughter and trying to reconnect with Samantha. He was patient, attentive, and seemed genuinely committed to making up for his absence. I found an apartment, he told her one evening as they watched Hope play on the living room floor. It's in a better neighborhood with good schools nearby. There's room for all of us. Samantha looked up from the bills she was sorting. All of us. I want us to be a family, Sam. I want to give Hope the stability she deserves, and I want to give you the support you should have had from the beginning. It's not that simple, Ryan, Samantha said, though she had to admit the offer was tempting. The idea of not worrying about rent, of having help with Hope, of giving her daughter a traditional family structure, it was everything she had dreamed of during those long, lonely months. It could be, Ryan insisted. I have a good job now, benefits, a steady income. I can take care of both of you. That night, as Samantha lay in bed listening to Hope's peaceful breathing from the crib beside her, she tried to imagine what life would be like with Ryan. Safe, certainly. Stable. But would it be happy? Could she ever fully trust him again? Her phone buzzed with a text message. She expected it to be from Ryan, but it was from Jonathan. I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need you to know something. Ryan Peterson called me today. He knows about our friendship and he made some concerning demands. Please be careful. Samantha stared at the message, her heart racing. How did Ryan know about Jonathan? And what kind of demands had he made? She typed back quickly, what did he say? Jonathan's response came immediately. He wanted me to fire you. Said you were distracted at work because of our inappropriate relationship, and that it would be better for everyone if you found employment elsewhere. Samantha felt sick. What did you tell him? I told him that your job performance has been exemplary and that your employment status is none of his business. But Samantha, be careful. He seemed to know things about our conversations, about the help I've given you. Someone's been watching you. The next morning, Samantha confronted Ryan when he showed up for his usual visit with Hope. You called my boss, she said without preamble. Ryan's expression shifted slightly, but he didn't deny it. I was protecting you. Protecting me from what? From making a mistake that could ruin your life, Ryan said calmly. This guy, Jonathan, he's been manipulating you, Sam. Rich men don't just help poor women out of the goodness of their hearts. He wants something from you. How do you even know about Jonathan? I've been watching you, Ryan admitted. I needed to understand your life, see what you needed, figure out how to fit back into it. I saw you talking to him, saw the way he looks at you. Samantha felt violated. You've been spying on me? I've been caring about you, Ryan corrected. And I can see that this man has been taking advantage of your vulnerability. He's your boss, Sam. He has power over you. Don't you see how wrong that is? He's never asked me for anything, Samantha said, but even as she said it, she remembered Jonathan's admission that he cared about her more than he should. Yet, Ryan said. But he will. Men like him always do. They help you just enough to make you feel obligated, and then they collect on that debt. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Ryan pulled out his phone and showed her a photo of her and Jonathan in the break room, him handing her the tea, both of them smiling. This was taken 2 months ago. He's been grooming you, Sam. Making you dependent on him, making you feel special. It's a classic pattern. Samantha stared at the photo, her mind reeling. Who took this? I hired someone to document your routine, Ryan said. I needed to know what I was dealing with before I tried to come back into your life. You hired someone to spy on me? Samantha's voice was dangerously quiet. I hired someone to look out for you, Ryan said. And it's a good thing I did, because you're being manipulated by a man who's only interested in you because you're vulnerable and grateful. Get out, Samantha said. Sam, please. Get out, she repeated, her voice rising. I don't know which one of you is worse, the man who lied to me about who he was, or the man who's been spying on me for months. But I know I can't trust either of you. You can trust me, Ryan said desperately. Everything I've done has been to protect you and Hope. I love you, Sam. I want to marry you, give you the life you deserve. The life I deserve doesn't include being spied on and manipulated, Samantha said, opening the door. Leave. Now. After Ryan left, Samantha sat on her couch with Hope in her arms, trying to process everything that had happened. Both men claimed to care about her, but both had been keeping secrets, making decisions about her life without her input. Her phone rang. It was Jonathan. Are you okay? He asked as soon as she answered. I've been worried since last night. I don't know, Samantha admitted. Ryan's been having me watched. He knows about our conversations, about the help you've given me. He even has photos. Photos of what? Of us talking. Of you giving me the tea that night. He's been building a case against you, trying to prove that you're manipulating me. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. And what do you think? Jonathan asked finally. I think I don't know who to trust anymore, Samantha said honestly. I think both of you have been keeping secrets from me, and I'm tired of being the last to know what's happening in my own life. You're right, Jonathan said quietly. I should have told you who I was from the beginning. I was protecting myself, not you, and that was selfish. Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserve the truth. All of it. Jonathan paused. I care about you, Samantha. More than I should, more than is probably appropriate. But I've never tried to manipulate you or take advantage of your situation. Everything I've done has been because I wanted to help, not because I expected anything in return. But you do expect something now, Samantha said. Don't you? Another long pause. I expect nothing, Jonathan said finally. But I hope for everything. I hope that someday you might see me as more than just your boss or the man who helped you when you needed it. I hope you might see me as someone who could love you and hope the way you both deserve to be loved. Samantha felt tears running down her cheeks. I can't deal with this right now. I need to focus on Hope, on figuring out what's best for her. I understand, Jonathan said. But Samantha? Whatever you decide about Ryan, about me, about your future, make sure it's your decision. Don't let anyone else make that choice for you. After she hung up, Samantha looked down at Hope, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. Her daughter deserved better than this mess of secrets and manipulation and competing agendas. She deserved a mother who was strong enough to make her own decisions, who couldn't be bullied or deceived or spied upon. For the first time in months, Samantha felt completely alone. But maybe that was exactly what she needed to be in order to figure out what she really wanted. The next few days passed in a blur of confusion and soul-searching. Samantha found herself avoiding both men, declining Ryan's calls and requests to visit, and taking her breaks at work when she knew Jonathan would be in meetings. She needed space to think, to process everything that had happened, to figure out what she wanted without anyone else's influence. But the pressure was mounting. Ryan had left multiple voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. He had even gone so far as to contact her mother, telling her that he wanted to marry Samantha and provide for his family. Her mother had called immediately, urging her to give Ryan another chance. "He seems genuinely sorry," her mother had said. "And honey, you can't raise Hope alone forever. Don't let pride get in the way of giving her a stable home." Meanwhile, Jonathan had respected her request for space, but his presence in the building was a constant reminder of her complicated feelings. She found herself looking for him despite her better judgment, and when she did catch glimpses of him through his office window, her heart would race in ways that confused and frustrated her. It was Friday night, and Samantha was cleaning the conference room when she heard voices in the hallway. She recognized both immediately, Ryan and Jonathan, and their conversation was heated. "She doesn't need your charity anymore," Ryan was saying. "I'm back in her life now. I can provide for her and my daughter. From what I understand, you weren't interested in providing for anyone 10 months ago," Jonathan replied calmly. "And whether Samantha needs my help or not is her decision to make." "Is it? Because from where I stand, it looks like you've been using your position to manipulate a vulnerable woman. That's not help, that's exploitation." Samantha moved closer to the door, her heart pounding. "I've never asked Samantha for anything," Jonathan said, his voice still controlled but with an edge of steel. "Can you say the same? Or are you asking her to forget 10 months of abandonment in exchange for the promise of financial security?" "I'm asking her to give me a chance to make things right," Ryan shot back. "Which is more than you can offer her. What's your endgame here? You can't marry her, the scandal would destroy your business reputation. You can't have a real relationship with her because of the power imbalance. So what are you offering besides guilt, money, and false hope?" Samantha's breath caught. She hadn't considered those practical realities, but Ryan was right. Even if Jonathan's feelings were genuine, how could they ever have a real relationship when he was her boss? When he was wealthy and she was poor? When being with him could jeopardize her job and her ability to support Hope? "I'm offering her respect," Jonathan said quietly. "I'm offering her the right to make her own choices without being pressured or manipulated. I'm offering her friendship and support without conditions. And I'm offering her love," Ryan said. "Real love, not the kind that comes with an expiration date when the novelty wears off. The kind of love that disappears when things get difficult?" Jonathan asked. "The kind that abandons a woman in labor?" "I made a mistake," Ryan said, his voice rising. "I was young and scared and I made a terrible mistake. But I'm here now and I'm not going anywhere. Can you say the same? When the board finds out about your relationship with an employee, when it becomes a liability to your business, will you still be here?" Samantha had heard enough. She stepped into the hallway and both men turned to look at her. "Stop," she said firmly. "Both of you just stop." "Sam," Ryan started, but she held up her hand. "No. I'm done listening to you two argue about what's best for me like I'm not capable of making my own decisions. I'm done being the prize in some competition between you." "That's not what this is," Jonathan said softly. "Isn't it?" Samantha looked between them. "Because from where I stand, it feels like you're both more interested in winning than in actually caring about what I want." "What do you want?" Ryan asked. Samantha took a deep breath. "I want to be with someone who chose me from the beginning, not someone who's trying to make up for choosing wrong. I want to be with someone who was honest with me from the start, not someone who thought I couldn't handle the truth. I want to be with someone who sees me as an equal, not as a charity case or a problem to be solved." Both men were quiet, waiting for her to continue. "Ryan, you left me when I needed you most. You've been spying on me instead of trusting me. You've been making decisions about my life without consulting me. That's not love, that's control." Ryan's face fell. "Sam, please." "And Jonathan," she continued, turning to face him, "you lied to me about who you were. You made me feel like we were equals when we never were. You made me depend on your kindness instead of helping me become independent." "That was never my intention," Jonathan said quietly. "Maybe not," Samantha agreed. "But it's what happened. And now I have to figure out who I am when I'm not being rescued or manipulated or watched over." "What does that mean?" Ryan asked. "It means I'm choosing neither of you," Samantha said, her voice steady despite the pain in her chest. I'm choosing me. I'm choosing hope. I'm choosing to build a life based on what I can do, not what someone else can do for me. You don't have to do this alone, Jonathan said. Yes, I do, Samantha replied. Because I've never actually tried to do it alone. I went from depending on Ryan to depending on your help to considering depending on Ryan again. I've never just depended on myself. And if you change your mind? Ryan asked hopefully. Samantha looked at him sadly. Then I'll know it's really my choice, not just a reaction to being scared or overwhelmed or grateful. She turned to go, then paused. I'll be putting in my 2 weeks' notice on Monday. I can't work here anymore knowing what I know. It's too complicated. You don't have to quit, Jonathan said urgently. I'll make sure there's no awkwardness, no? It's not about awkwardness, Samantha interrupted. It's about me needing to prove to myself that I can make it without anyone's help. I need to know that I'm strong enough to take care of Hope on my own terms. As she walked away, she heard Ryan call after her, "This is a mistake, Sam. You're letting pride ruin your chance at happiness." But for the first time in months, Samantha didn't feel like she was making a mistake. She felt like she was finally making a choice that was entirely her own. 2 months later, Samantha was working her new job at a different office building across town. The pay was slightly less, but she had also picked up weekend shifts at a local coffee shop, and between the 2 jobs she was managing to cover her expenses without anyone's help. It was exhausting, but it was hers. She had heard from Ryan a few times, text messages asking how she was doing, requests to see Hope, apologies for the way he had handled things. She had been polite but distant, allowing him supervised visits with Hope but making it clear that she wasn't interested in rebuilding their relationship. She hadn't heard from Jonathan at all, and she told herself that was for the best. But she thought about him more often than she cared to admit, especially late at night when Hope was sleeping and the apartment felt too quiet. It was a Saturday evening, and Samantha was at the coffee shop finishing her shift when she looked up to see Jonathan walking through the door. Her heart stopped for a moment, then started beating double time. He looked tired, older somehow, but his eyes lit up when he saw her behind the counter. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi," she managed, acutely aware that her co-workers were watching with interest. "Can I get a coffee? And maybe a chance to talk?" Samantha glanced at the clock. Her shift was over in 10 minutes. "I get off soon. You can wait if you want." She served him his coffee, hyper-aware of his presence in the small cafe. When her replacement arrived, she grabbed her coat and met him at a corner table. "You look good," he said. "How are you?" "I'm okay," she said honestly. "Tired but okay. How did you find me?" "I may have asked around," he admitted with a slight smile. "I wanted to make sure you were all right." "I'm fine," Samantha said, though she was anything but fine sitting across from him, breathing in his familiar cologne and trying not to remember how safe she had felt during their late-night conversations. "I have something for you," Jonathan said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "It's not what you think," he added quickly when she looked hesitant. Samantha opened the envelope and found a check made out to her for an amount that made her gasp. "What is this?" "It's payment for a consultant position," Jonathan said. "I've been working on a new program to help single parents in the workforce. I need someone who understands the challenges they face, someone who can help design support systems that actually work." "Jonathan, I can't." "It's not charity," he said firmly. "It's a job. A real job that pays well and would allow you to help other people in situations like yours. You'd be working with HR departments, daycare centers, policy makers. You'd be making a real difference." Samantha stared at the check. It was more money than she had ever seen at one time. "Why me?" "Because you're brilliant," Jonathan said simply. "Because you understand what it's like to juggle impossible schedules and worry about childcare and choose between paying bills. Because you're strong and resourceful and you have insights that could help thousands of other parents." "I don't have any credentials," Samantha protested. "I'm a high school graduate who works 2 jobs. You have the most important credential of all, experience. And if you want to go back to school, the position comes with education benefits." Samantha looked at the check again, then at Jonathan's face. "What's the catch?" "No catch." "Well, one catch. You'd be working with me occasionally since it's my project. But I promise to keep things professional." "Jonathan." "I know you chose to be independent," he said quickly. "I respect that choice. But being independent doesn't mean you have to turn down opportunities when they're offered honestly. This isn't about us, it's about you and your abilities and what you can contribute to the world." Samantha felt tears threatening. "I miss you," she whispered. "I miss you too," he said softly. I miss our conversations, your laugh, the way you light up when you talk about hope. I miss being part of your life. I needed to prove I could do it alone, she said. And you did. You proved it to yourself and to everyone else. You're one of the strongest people I know. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. There's something else, Jonathan said finally. Something I should have said months ago. What? I love you, he said simply. I love your strength, your determination, your fierce protection of hope. I love the way you make me want to be a better man. I love that you chose to be independent rather than settle for less than you deserve. Samantha's breath caught. Jonathan. I'm not asking you to say it back, he continued. I'm not asking you to make any decisions right now. I'm just telling you the truth because you deserve to know how I feel. I love you too, Samantha said quietly. That's why I had to leave. I couldn't tell if my feelings were real or just gratitude. I needed to know who I was without you before I could figure out who I wanted to be with you. And now I know that I can take care of myself and hope. I know that I don't need someone to rescue me. And I know that what I feel for you is real, not just dependency or gratitude. Jonathan reached across the table and took her hand. So what happens now? Now we take it slow, Samantha said. We figure out how to be equals, how to have a relationship that's based on choice rather than need. And we see if what we have is strong enough to build something real on. Jonathan smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him in months. I'd like that very much. There's one more thing, Samantha said, pulling her hand back gently. Ryan proposed to me yesterday. Jonathan's expression shifted. And I said no. I told him that I couldn't marry someone out of obligation or fear. I told him that hope deserves parents who choose to be together, not parents who settle for each other. How did he take it? Not well, Samantha admitted. He said I was making a mistake, that I'd regret choosing pride over security. But it wasn't about pride. It was about love. What kind of love? The kind that grows slowly based on respect and understanding. The kind that makes you want to be better without making you feel like you're not good enough as you are. The kind that's patient and honest and real. Jonathan's eyes searched her face. Is that what you think we could have? I think we already have it, Samantha said softly. We just need to figure out how to build on it without all the secrets and power imbalances and complications. The job offer stands, Jonathan said. No strings attached. If you want to take it because it's a good opportunity. If you don't, that's fine too. Either way, I'd like to try dating you properly. Dinner, movies, meeting Hope officially as someone who cares about her mother. Samantha laughed, the first real laugh she'd had in weeks. You want to date me? I want to court you, Jonathan said seriously. I want to show you that my feelings are real, that I can be the partner you deserve, that we can build something beautiful together. What about your business? Your reputation? All the things Ryan said about the scandal of a CEO dating a former employee. Let me worry about that, Jonathan said firmly. I've built this company from nothing. I can handle a little gossip from people who don't understand that love doesn't care about social status or corporate hierarchies. Samantha looked at the check again, then folded it carefully and put it in her purse. I'll think about the job. But I'd like to try dating you too. Slowly. Carefully. With Hope's well-being as the top priority. Always, Jonathan agreed. She comes first. She should come first. Then maybe, Samantha said, standing up from the table, you'd like to meet her properly tomorrow? As Jonathan, not as my former boss, but as the man who's interested in her mother? I'd love that more than anything, Jonathan said, standing as well. As they walked toward the cafe door together, Samantha felt something she hadn't experienced in over a year: hope for the future. Not the desperate hope of someone drowning and grabbing for a lifeline, but the quiet, steady hope of someone who knew her own strength and was choosing to share it with someone worthy. She thought about Ryan's proposal, about his promises of security and stability. Those things were important, but they weren't enough. She wanted more than just survival. She wanted a partnership built on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine love. With Jonathan, she thought she might have found exactly that. But this time she would take her time to be sure. This time she would choose with her head and her heart, not just her fears. There's something I need to tell you, she said as they paused outside the cafe. What's that? When Ryan proposed, he offered to put me and Hope on his insurance, to buy us a house, to give Hope everything money could buy. Jonathan's expression became carefully neutral. And that wasn't enough? It wasn't real, Samantha said. He was offering those things because he felt guilty, because he thought that's what I wanted. But he never asked what I actually wanted. He never asked about my dreams, my goals, my plans for the future. What do you want? Jonathan asked. I want to matter, Samantha said simply. I want to be seen as more than just Hope's mother or someone who needs to be taken care of. I want to contribute something meaningful to the world. I want Hope to grow up seeing her mother as someone strong and independent who chose love over convenience. You already matter, Jonathan said softly. You matter to Hope, you matter to me, and if you take that job, you'll matter to thousands of other parents who need someone to understand their struggles. Is this really happening? Samantha asked, suddenly feeling overwhelmed by the possibility that her life was about to change in the best possible way. Only if you want it to be, Jonathan said. The choice is entirely yours. It always has been. As Samantha drove home that night, she thought about all the choices she had made over the past year. Some had been mistakes, some had been survival tactics, and some had been acts of courage she hadn't even recognized at the time. But this choice to trust Jonathan, to take a chance on love, to believe that she deserved happiness, this felt different. This felt like the first choice she was making from a position of strength rather than desperation. Hope was sleeping peacefully when she got home, and Samantha sat beside her daughter's crib for a long time, watching her breathe and thinking about the future they could build together. Tomorrow, baby girl, she whispered, you're going to meet someone very special. Someone who thinks your mama is pretty amazing, and who wants to be part of our family not because he has to be, but because he wants to be. Hope stirred slightly in her sleep, and Samantha could have sworn she smiled. 1 year later, Samantha stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting the simple but elegant wedding dress she had chosen. It wasn't the elaborate gown she had once dreamed of, but it was perfect for the intimate ceremony they had planned. Hope toddled around the room in her flower girl dress, babbling happily and occasionally falling down on her bottom before getting back up with determination. You look beautiful, her mother said from the doorway, tears already forming in her eyes. Thank you for being here, Samantha said, hugging her mother tightly. I know it was a long trip. I wouldn't miss this for the world. I have to admit, I wasn't sure about this at first. The CEO of a company, the age difference, the complications. But seeing you two together, seeing how he is with Hope. Her mother smiled. He loves you both completely. The past year had been a journey of discovery for all of them. Jonathan had been patient as Samantha learned to trust again, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. He had courted her properly, dinner dates, movies, long walks in the park with Hope in her stroller. He had shown up to Hope's first birthday party with a thoughtful gift and had cheered louder than anyone when she took her first steps. The job opportunity had been everything he had promised and more. Samantha now worked as a consultant for family-friendly workplace policies, traveling to companies across the country to help them create better support systems for working parents. She had also started taking evening classes toward a degree in social work, with Jonathan's encouragement and support. But perhaps most importantly, she had learned that accepting help didn't make her weak, and that choosing love over fear was the bravest thing she could do. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Her maid of honor, Sarah, a colleague from her new job who had become a close friend, peeked her head in. The guests are seated, and the groom is looking appropriately nervous, she announced with a grin. Nervous? Samantha asked, surprised. Jonathan had seemed completely calm that morning. In the best possible way. Like a man who can't believe he's about to marry the woman of his dreams. As they made their way to the garden where the ceremony would take place, Samantha's phone buzzed with a text message. She almost ignored it, but something made her check. It was from Ryan. I saw the announcement in the paper. I hope you're happy, Sam. You deserve to be happy. Hope does too. I'm sorry for everything. Samantha stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it without responding. That chapter of her life was closed. Today was about new beginnings, about the family she had chosen and the love she had earned. The garden was small but perfect, decorated with white flowers and soft lighting. About 30 people were in attendance, close friends, family, and a few colleagues from both their lives. Jonathan had wanted to keep it intimate, saying that their love didn't need a large audience to make it real. When the music started and Samantha began walking down the short aisle with Hope in her arms, she saw Jonathan's face light up with pure joy. He was wearing a simple dark suit, and his eyes never left hers as she approached. The ceremony was beautiful and personal. They had written their own vows, and when it was Jonathan's turn to speak, his voice was steady but emotional. Samantha, he began, you came into my life when I thought I had everything figured out. You showed me that success without someone to share it with is meaningless. You taught me that real strength comes from vulnerability, that real love comes from choice, and that real family comes from commitment, not just biology. He looked down at Hope, who was contentedly playing with Samantha's bouquet. "Hope, you may not understand this now, but I want you to know that I'm not just marrying your mother today. I'm choosing to be your father, to love you and protect you and support you for the rest of my life. You are my daughter in every way that matters." When it was Samantha's turn, she took a deep breath and spoke from her heart. "Jonathan, you could have chosen anyone. Someone without baggage, without complications, without a child who would need your love and patience. But you chose us. You chose to see strength where others saw weakness, potential where others saw problems. You taught me that I was worth loving not despite my struggles, but because of how I faced them." She paused, looking out at the small group of people who had gathered to celebrate with them. "A year ago, I thought my story was about survival. But you helped me realize it was actually about finding out who I really am when I'm not afraid. Today I'm choosing you not because I need you but because I want you. Because love without choice isn't really love at all." The judge pronounced them husband and wife, and when Jonathan kissed her, Samantha felt like her life was finally, truly beginning. The reception was held in the same garden, with simple food and heartfelt toasts. Jonathan's business partner spoke about watching his friend transform from a successful but lonely man into someone who had found his purpose. Samantha's mother told embarrassing stories from her childhood that made everyone laugh. But the most meaningful moment came when Jonathan's elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, stood up with her walker and demanded attention. "I've watched this man for 5 years," she said in her heavily accented English. "He worked too much, never smiled, never had visitors. But since he met Samantha and Hope, he's different. He smiles all the time, he brings them flowers from his garden, he asks me for advice about children. This is what love looks like. It changes you into the person you were meant to be." As the evening wound down and Hope fell asleep in her grandmother's arms, Samantha and Jonathan sat together watching their guests enjoy the celebration. "Any regrets?" Jonathan asked, taking her hand. "Only one," Samantha said, and his expression became concerned. "I regret that it took me so long to believe I deserved this kind of happiness." "You deserve this and more," Jonathan said, bringing her hand to his lips. "We both do. Hope does." "What happens now?" Samantha asked, echoing the question he had asked her in the coffee shop a year ago. "Now we build our life together," Jonathan said simply. "We raise hope, we support each other's dreams, we face whatever challenges come our way as a team. We love each other through the good times and the difficult ones. And if Ryan ever comes back? If he tries to cause problems?" Jonathan's expression became serious. "Then we handle it together. Hope will always be his biological daughter, and if he ever becomes the father she deserves, we'll figure out how to make that work. But you and I are her family now. We're her stability, her security, her example of what love looks like." As if summoned by their conversation, Ryan appeared at the edge of the garden. Samantha's heart clenched with old anxiety, but Jonathan squeezed her hand reassuringly. Ryan looked different, cleaner, more settled, less desperate than he had been during his previous attempts to reconnect. He approached slowly, his hands visible and his manner respectful. "I don't want to interrupt," he said quietly. "I just wanted to say congratulations. And to give you this." He handed Samantha a legal document. When she opened it, she saw that it was a formal relinquishment of his parental rights, along with a blessing for Jonathan to adopt Hope. "I've been in therapy," Ryan explained. "Real therapy, not just the kind where you talk about your feelings. I've learned some things about myself, about what I did to you and Hope. And I've realized that the best thing I can do for my daughter is to let her be raised by people who will always put her first." Samantha stared at the document, speechless. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Ryan continued. "I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand that love means putting someone else's needs before your own, and I failed that test completely. But he didn't." He nodded toward Jonathan. "He loves you both the way you deserve to be loved." "Ryan," Samantha began, but he held up his hand. "I'm moving to Seattle," he said. "New job, fresh start. I won't contact you again unless you want me to. But if Hope ever wants to know about her biological father, you can tell her that he loved her enough to let her go." He turned to leave, then paused. "Take care of them," he said to Jonathan. "Always," Jonathan replied simply. After Ryan left, Samantha and Jonathan sat in silence for a long moment. "How do you feel?" Jonathan asked. "Relieved," Samantha said honestly. "Sad for him but relieved for us. For Hope." "Do you want me to adopt her?" "More than anything," Samantha said, tears flowing freely now. "I want her to have your name, your protection, your love legally and officially. I want her to never doubt that she belongs to you as much as she belongs to me. Then that's what we'll do, Jonathan said, pulling her close. First thing Monday morning. As they gathered their things and prepared to leave for their honeymoon, a long weekend at a family resort where Hope could play on the beach while her parents relaxed, Samantha reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. A year and a half ago, she had been abandoned and alone, struggling to survive with a newborn baby and 2 minimum-wage jobs. She had been hurt, angry, and convinced that she would have to face everything alone. But life had taught her that being strong enough to survive on your own and being wise enough to accept love when it's offered weren't mutually exclusive. She had learned that choosing the right person to love was just as important as learning to love yourself. As they drove away from the garden with Hope sleeping peacefully in her car seat, Samantha looked at her new husband and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Not just for his love, but for the journey that had led her to understand what real love looked like. She had thought her story was about a man who abandoned her in labor and watched her marry someone else. But she realized now that it was actually about a woman who learned to value herself enough to choose love over fear, partnership over desperation, and hope over resignation. "I love you, Mrs. Sterling," Jonathan said softly. "I love you too," she replied, and for the first time in her life, those words felt like a promise rather than a prayer. Thank you so much for joining Samantha and Jonathan on their journey from heartbreak to healing to love. This story was inspired by the belief that everyone deserves to be loved for who they are, not just for what they can provide or how grateful they might be. I'd love to hear from you about which moment in the story resonated most with you. Was it Samantha's decision to choose independence over easy security? Jonathan's patient approach to winning her trust? The moment when she realized that accepting help doesn't make you weak? What do you think was the turning point when Samantha knew she could trust Jonathan with her heart? And do you believe Ryan's final gesture was genuine, or do you think he'll try to come back into their lives someday? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights always help me understand what touches readers' hearts the most.